It's been over a year since I switched from an Android device to an iPhone as the main phone that I use. And I'm going to take you through my experience over the past year, the benefits to using an iPhone, what you miss out on when you switch away from Android, and who ultimately I think should make the switch. So let's start with the benefits of switching to an iPhone, and the first one for me has been the Apple ecosystem. And what I'm referring to with that term is how well all of Apple's devices work together, and as you acquire more Apple devices, the better the overall experience gets. Now, for the iPhone, the first Apple ecosystem feature that has really benefited me is with certain AirPods and Beats headphones. You can effortlessly switch the audio between your iPhone, Mac, and iPads, which is something no other headphones can do with these devices and is very convenient if you're listening to something on your Mac or iPad and need to go outside, so you pick up your iPhone and start playing media on it immediately. Another benefit of the AirPods ecosystem is spatial audio with movies and TV shows. When you watch something on your iPhone with a compatible set of AirPods, like my AirPods Max, which I absolutely love, or certain Beats earbuds, when watching content, it'll sound like you're watching with a surround sound system even though you only have headphones on. This feature is really impressive, and so far no one has been able to execute it as well as Apple has. Now, the next feature in the Apple ecosystem that you get a benefit from when you have an iPhone is called continuity. Continuity with your iPhone allows you to pick up where you left off in an app on your iPhone on another device like my iPad Pro. Or my favorite feature, Universal Clipboard, which allows you to copy text or a link or even an image on your iPhone and then paste it on another Apple device. AirDrop is another Apple ecosystem feature that I use a ton with my iPhone. And while yes, Android does have nearby share that works well between Android devices, it doesn't actually compare to AirDrop in situations where you're trying to get a file from your phone to a Mac or an iPad. Only AirDrop or Bluetooth sharing can do that, or potentially another third-party solution, but AirDrop in my experience has been the most convenient and faster option. Another Apple ecosystem feature that I've been using a lot with my iPhone is focus mode syncing. Whenever I have a focus mode enabled on my iPhone, it'll sync to all of my Apple devices, which is extremely useful and beneficial to my productivity. I also love how tightly integrated my HomePod minis are with my iPhone, allowing me not only to hear or reply to text messages from the speaker, but also make outgoing phone calls and switch incoming calls over to my HomePod mini as well. The last Apple ecosystem benefit that I've enjoyed while owning an iPhone over the past year is being able to use an Apple Watch. The Apple Watch is arguably still the best smartwatch on the market today, and only Samsung has come close to matching everything it offers for Android users. The Apple Watch, to me, acts as an extension of my iPhone. I use it to screen notifications without having to take my phone out, for tracking my fitness and sleep, being able to see information like the weather, time, calendar, events, etc. at a glance, and one of my favorite things about the Apple Watch, music controls through the Now Playing screen. It makes it incredibly convenient to set my phone down with some headphones in and still have full control over the media playing from my phone on the watch. So those are the things with my iPhone and the Apple ecosystem that I really like. Now, the next benefit that I found using an iPhone is iMessage. Now, this might be more of a US-centric benefit, since I know in other countries people use WhatsApp or other platform-agnostic messaging services. But here in the US at least, in my family and friend circles, pretty much everyone uses iMessage. Only like 2 people I text with on a regular basis use Android. This makes for a very consistent messaging experience, with the only downside being the social pressure of staying within the iMessage ecosystem, which makes it very hard to switch back to an Android phone. Now, I did switch to an Android phone for a year and I survived, so for me at least, the social pressure to stay on iMessage, it's not as key. But what is how easy iMessage makes it to sync all of my messages across all of my Apple devices, which on Android is somewhat matched by Google's Messages web app. However, in my experience, having dedicated apps for messaging on my Mac and iPads has been a better and more reliable experience than my experience with Android messages through a web app on iOS devices. Another benefit of owning an iPhone that I'll mention is iOS first apps. Sometimes I've noticed that smaller developers of hardware devices or services will sometimes still develop for iOS before Android. When using an iPhone, I haven't run into the scenario where an app is available on Android but not iOS. Now, that could just be where I'm located. Here in the US, the iPhone does have a pretty significant chunk of the smartphone market share, but still, it is a scenario that I ran into when I was on Android where something was available on iOS but not for Android. I haven't run into it so far while being on iOS. Or you run into a scenario like I did with a beloved app that is just gobbled up by Apple and made an iOS exclusive app like Dark Sky. That's another benefit being on iOS. You can still use Dark Sky, and Apple's new Excellent Weather app includes a lot of the information from the Dark Sky app. Google's default weather app on Android, in my opinion, just isn't as good. Another thing I much prefer with the iPhone and iOS is having not only a back swipe gesture, but a forward swipe one as well in certain apps like Chrome and Safari. The last main benefit I've noticed about owning an iPhone is the hardware accessory ecosystem that has been built up around it. Because Apple sells millions of these devices every year, that means there are thousands of iPhone accessories to choose from, like cases, screen protectors, and car mounts. Depending on what Android device you have, because there are so many different devices out there and some sell better than others, unless you have a major phone like those made by Samsung, you're not likely going to have the same level of choice in accessories to choose from as you would with an iPhone. Alright, so that's everything I've enjoyed about switching over to an iPhone. Now let me take you through some of the things I miss about Android. The first feature I miss is Smart Lock, which can keep your phone unlocked when it's on you, as well as being able to stay unlocked in a specific location or when connected to a certain Bluetooth device like my car. The iPhone just doesn't have anything comparable to this great quality of life feature on Android. Now, another thing I miss about Android is its notification system. Android is still superior with notifications grouping when you pull down the notification shade, sectioning off conversations from alerting notifications and then silent notifications. The spacing and stacking also just looks much better than it does on iOS. Also, there are some notifications, like from my camera feed from my Nest doorbell, that'll actually show little video clips in the notification itself, which is super useful and something my iPhone can't do. Also, Android as an OS in general is just more open. The UI is more customizable and flexible, which is something that I appreciate. You can place widgets and icons where you want without adhering to a certain order like in iOS, and I love the new Material You automatic colors and icon matching that you get with Android 12 on certain devices like the Pixel. It makes the OS look much more in sync with my phone's hardware design compared to my iPhone. Another huge benefit of Android is the OS allows you to sideload apps like Fortnite. Now, a lot of people and some tech pundits have made a big deal about how hard it seems to sideload an app on an Android phone, but in my experience, it's not that hard at all. Like, if you can sideload an app on a Mac, you can sideload an app on an Android device. It's really not that hard. This flexibility is something you don't get on iOS. Though Apple is certainly capable of implementing a similar system like they do on their Mac, they refuse to and force everyone to download apps through their App Store. Android's flexibility here is something I really appreciate. Now, another Android feature that I miss quite a bit is the always-on display. It's still something Apple hasn't implemented, and I like having the flexibility to enable this feature on Android and be able to see the little app icons to see what apps I have notifications from, which at a glance contextually is very useful. So if I see it's just a notification from a news app, I'm not going to bother opening up my phone to go view that notification. But if I see the snap icon, I'm definitely opening up my phone because I likely need to respond to someone. Cast support is another thing I miss about Android. If you have a lot of cast-enabled devices like Google and Nest speakers in your home, Android has more options to connect and cast media to those devices than iOS does. Now, another thing I miss about Android, and I find very cool, is how easy it is to switch from one phone made by one manufacturer to another phone made by a different Android manufacturer. Android has a lot more experimentation with form factors than iOS does, like flip screen phones from Samsung or Google's new Pixel phones with their custom Tensor chips, which enables all sorts of cool features. The last thing I miss about my Android devices is USB-C. Most Android devices nowadays have USB-C as the charging port of choice, where Apple stubbornly refuses to switch to USB-C for their iPhones, even as other Apple devices like the iPad Air, iPad Pro, and Mac lines all have switched to this port type. Alright, so that's everything I like about using an iPhone. What I miss about using an Android device. Now let's talk recommendations. After spending 1 year on Android and now 1 year back with an iPhone, here's my general advice on which phone ecosystem is better for certain use cases. You'll notice that I spent a lot of time with the iPhone talking about the Apple ecosystem experience. This is where I think the iPhone sells itself really well. If you already have a Mac, iPad, Apple TV, etc., getting an iPhone seems like a no-brainer because having all of your devices in one ecosystem is just going to be easier. And the more Apple devices you have, the more features and benefits you'll get out of the ecosystem as a whole. Now, if you really like having a Mac and an iPad, but you really want an Android phone, it's not like when you get an Android phone, you're going to lose out on all of the Apple ecosystem functionality. You'll still get automatic headphone switching between your Mac and iPad, and you can still use spatial audio on your Apple TV, etc. What you do miss out on are features tied to iMessage and phone calls, which can actually matter a lot. Like all of your messages syncing across all of your Apple devices, being able to take phone calls on a Mac or an iPad, switch which device you're listening to a call with in real time, and you'll lose out on being able to send text messages with your HomePod Mini, which is something you cannot do with Google Assistant or Amazon speakers with an Android phone. Now, if you're not already in the Apple ecosystem, you don't necessarily see the benefit of being in it, or you just absolutely are dead set against locking yourself into the Apple ecosystem, like totally get it, or you're someone who you've already got a PC, you've got an Android tablet, etc. An Android device in those use cases, that's likely going to be the best way to go. You'll get the flexibility to own a wider variety of phones from different manufacturers in different form factors that come with their own software and hardware benefits. And with Windows especially, you'll be able to have your phone sync well with that OS. Now, if you're curious which one I'm going to continue using, I have acquired so many Apple devices over the past year for reviews on this channel, and I've continued using almost all of them. I am very deep into the Apple ecosystem at this point, and I really appreciate how tightly integrated all of my Apple devices are. So for now, even though I'm very tempted to switch over to the Pixel 6 I bought or the 6 Pro I got from Google because of the creature comfort features and a more flexible OS, which we've got reviews of coming soon, so check those out and subscribe to the channel to make sure you see those. But for now, personally, I think I'll be sticking with my iPhone as my main phone. Now, if you have any questions remaining around switching from Android to iOS or vice versa, because I've done that as well, or you want to share your experience switching from one of these phone operating systems to the other, leave a comment below, hit that thumbs up button if you liked this video and found it helpful, and subscribe to the channel to see more videos like this one. For 6 months later, I'm Josh Tedder. Thanks for watching.